Video is to teach you what I affectionately call zero-point perspective. And I would argue it is the most important type of perspective because it's the easiest to use to create depth. And it also generally applies to all paintings, drawings, sculptures, you name it, and you can use these tricks. They're the most universal. So the first one you might have remembered from elementary school, which is just overlap. After overlap, though, there is one called line weight. And in elementary school, this might have been combined for you, but line weight literally means how dark is the line, or how much pressure was put on the line, or if the line had weight, how much does it weigh. The more the line weighs, or the darker it is, the more forward it becomes in the image, if it is a detail-lined image. We're not talking the same as shading. It's important to keep those distinctions separated. Line thickness is another one. So the darkness is the same. These are equally dark. Full pressure was put on. But this line here is thicker, and therefore it pulls to the front. Then these three tricks can be used in combination to create these more complex ideas. The first one is that value reduction. And value reduction is basically where something called atmospheric perspective happens, where the atmosphere or whatever gets in the way. And so things become grayer as they go further back into space. The next one is detail reduction and size reduction. So things should get significantly smaller the further back that they are. Students often estimate how much smaller they have to get. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. And then detail reduction would mean that things slowly, like our eyes can't see perfectly everywhere. So you have to slowly reduce that knowledge to make it seem like it's going, to make it seem like it's going further back into space, rather than just like this being like the baby, like this is daddy, this is the mommy, that's the baby, right? It's the same thing going backwards. And then paper placement. In general, the higher something is, the further back from their viewpoint it is. And I'm going to show you how this is true. So we're going to flip this around and look out the window. Okay. So first off, you should realize here, if I lower this even more, the further down in your viewpoint, the bottom of the paper it is, in the more detail you have, right? So these things here, although the sun is kind of messing us up, you can see more cleanly. They also are bigger. I mean, even consider something as insignificant as like the circle on this guy right here, we know is much smaller than that big old crack in the cement, but yet it appears much bigger, right? Let's make it even more drastic. If I bring this here, we know that the openings of those doors are huge, right? But look, that takes up like 1/8 of that space. That tree is like 12 or 15 feet tall, and yet this ruler looks like it would take up 12 feet of the tree. So the other thing to realize is you can already see detail reduction. So close to you, further away as we get backwards into the space. Then you can see this grass. You can see the lines of it. You can see leaves in it. And it looks very green. But notice as we go backwards, this grass looks less green. It's not less green. It's already that atmospheric perspective playing a part. These things are not actually washed out in detail. If we moved closer to them, you would see that they are just as dark and vibrant as that grass. But that atmospheric perspective grays everything out, including the actual building. Okay, so I have the ability for you to practice these skills. Oops, give the computer a chance to reboot here. Okay, you're gonna wanna come from me and ask for the 0-point perspective learning kit. The first thing available in this kit is a bunch of squares. You wanna place these squares so that you can see if this was the exact same square, how much smaller that is into relative size of where it would go, right? I mean, this is like 1/8 of the size of that square. in order to get it to go back there. If I wanted to do a square all the way back there, it would be, like so small I couldn't even really cut it out. Then you want to practice that whole line weight and line thickness. So go ahead and trace, sorry, I know my arm's in the way. Trace around your squares. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, how dark do I need to make that line so that it looks like it's going backwards, not that it's like the mommy square, right? And the nice thing is if you put too much down with this, you can just pull it up with your finger, or you can start all over with the eraser. And then how thick should that line be? I want to mimic it, but it's just further back in space. Then I can do the next square, and again, you might get really, really light and really, really faint in order to make it look like it's going back into space. Once you can be successful with the basic squares, we're going to try something more complicated. So on this one, you want to have value reduction, detail reduction, and paper placement. Again, the beauty of this is that as you place things, if you realize you don't like it, you can just erase it and start over. This is a great thing to photograph both of these using your Chromebook to make sure that you're documenting your learning for the day. And then don't forget to take this skill and redo your sketches to show this new learning and to make your art better.